Hello and welcome to Let's Talk Sports. I am Ralph LaBella.
And I'm Ron Sen. Where do we begin? Let's talk about the salary disparities between the WNBA and the NBA. Now, obviously, it's apples and oranges because you compare the revenues of teams, which are not very transparent, and franchise values, which we don't know. But we do know that WNBA average salaries are on the order of $65,000 a year versus the NBA, which is something like, well, it's way over $800,000. So, I mean, that's the low-end players are getting that. So if the salary cap is 105, something like that, then the average player has to be getting over $8 million a year.
More than $8 million, right.
So now, WNBA has a shorter season. They obviously don't sell out with high-cost tickets at the biggest events, and their TV contracts can't be the same as the NBA. But the players are not happy. They want bigger salaries, and I don't know if the economics of the sport are going to prevail.
Well, doesn't the NBA run it?
Well, the NBA does support it in some way. I don't know how much money each team gets.
But you look at it, the top player, I believe, with the females is $300,000. I think Stewart was making $300,000. Taurasi, I think they make around $300,000. That's the most. But they play a 28-game schedule.
Something like that.
So you multiply that by 3, it's more than the NBA. And they're not even making $1 million, the top players. The top NBA players are making 41, 42 million. I know,
right.
You know, they're bringing in more money.
Right. Karl Anthony Towns just signed 5 years, $190 million. Now, obviously, the television revenues are probably the biggest difference.
But you know what's a shame, though, Ron? You watch the WNBA. That's great basketball. I watched the playoffs. I mean, you see Seattle won it. Stewart was the MVP of the league for the year, and plus he was the MVP in the finals. I mean, just a tremendous player, but just a brand of basketball. Well, you know what I think about women's basketball. I mean, I love it. UConn is my favorite sports team. Just watching them play, execute the game. It is a shame. I mean, the top players should be making over $1 million.
Well, it's the purest form of basketball, but people get turned off because of it's below the rim. Well, you can have great basketball playing below the rim. When you see a bunch of highlights of guys dunking, I think, you know, it's an athletic feat, but most dunks are not, you know, a high skill level. It's a high athleticism play for guys who are mostly tall.
You know, it's actually better basketball than the NBA. When you talk about someone who, if you really love the game of basketball and the way it's executed, a lot of times in the NBA, they'll go pick and roll on one side. They'll slow the game. You remember when Pierce was playing a lot?
Sure.
They'd walk up the court. I mean, in WNBA, you don't see that. They execute the game well. They're getting better and better.
Well, now the NBA is driven so much by analytics, so that they know that for most players, isolation isn't really a high points per possession play. I think the highest team for points per possession for isolation is Houston, because Harden will go one-on-one, but even then it was something like 1.15 points per possession, where three-point shooters off the catch can score at a higher level, as well as the highest scoring play per possession is cuts to the basket, where a guy gets a feed for a layup. So, you know, that's what we're going to see going forward. Now, what's also worth talking about is, as we move into the NBA starting tomorrow, the Celtics open up training camp, it's going to be, what team do you think is going to be the most improved team in the NBA? So I have an idea of what mine is. What do you think?
Well, it's going to be the Lakers, the most improved, not the best, the most improved team because of LeBron. You know, they got some of those young kids are pretty good ball players. If they come along, if LeBron becomes a true leader and it's not all about him.
Right. So that was my thoughts entirely. You get LeBron James, what is it, 8 years in a row to the finals. They got Rondo to complement Lonzo Ball. I'm sure Rondo, with his basketball IQ, if he's interested, will make Ball a better player. They have Kyle Kuzma. They got JaVale McGee. So they've got players who are championship experienced.
Well, they have Ingram, too.
Right.
Young.
Right. So they have a nice blend of older players and younger players. And I would expect the Lakers will make the playoffs, probably be 5 or 6 in the West.
Yeah, there'd be anywhere between 4, 5, 6. I mean, Houston's still going to be favored, with Golden State number 1 and then Houston. I think Minnesota, if they can get their act together, has a potential, but Butler's upset.
Minnesota's got, right. Well, you've probably heard the rumors about Karl Anthony Towns and Butler, as far as whether Butler was, to pardon the expression, romancing Towns' girlfriend. So I don't know if they're going to be capable of playing on the same team. Butler's obviously looking for an out, either the Knicks, the Nets, or I think the Clippers. And I got to think that it's going to be impossible for them to play there. And I guess Wiggins was bad-mouthing Butler. So it just seems like it's not happy
That's
out
too
in
bad.
Wolfland.
There's talent there. You thought they were going to be really good. Lost a lot of close games again last year. They should be. I mean, if they get together, I mean, they do have the talent.
Well, just change gears a minute. There have been some substantial rules changes or officiating changes in the NFL, and they're having a big impact on games early, particularly roughing the passer. So if you tackle the quarterback and drive him to the ground, or it looks like if you just hit him hard, you're going to get a roughing the passer.
Yeah, that Green Bay game, that was a disgrace. I mean, they're coming at him. I mean, they're not trying to drive the quarterback. You could see it. He just landed on top of him because of his momentum, and they call him. That cost him the game. And then the Oakland game, too. There was a big call in the Oakland-Miami game.
And we noticed that, you all noticed that the kickoff coverage team now has to be right up on the ball, so they can't get coverage. So you notice the first Patriots game, they couldn't defend returns. Now they're just kicking it through the end zone.
Yeah, which is smart.
Right. So it has advanced the possessions from the 20 to the 25 just because of that. And hopefully there's be less injuries. Of course, from the Patriots standpoint, the big injury came to a former Patriot yesterday, as Jimmy Garoppolo tore his ACL. So he'll be out for the entire season. Presumably, he'll be back for next season. But when you look at San Francisco, for example, their hopes go up in smoke. What is he, $27 million a year? So just take $27 million off your payroll.
Same thing with the kid from Kansas City. He runs too much, and he tries to run through people at times. He's going to get injured before the season's over. It's going to be a big loss for them. He looks unbelievable.
Right. Not only is he mobile, he can really throw on the run, which
he's very good.
Almost like a young Elway. Probably better than Elway was at that point in his career.
What is it, 13 touchdown passes in 3 games, no
13,
interceptions?
Right. He's been fantastic. So there's a lot of interesting things happen in the NFL. Interesting and depressing was the Patriots' trip to Detroit yesterday. Maybe we should talk about the Bills going to. They thought it was announced they were going to Wisconsin. The players didn't even know that Minnesota's Vikings were in Minnesota. I mean, that seems impossible. But somehow the Bills beat the Vikings. I don't know. So if you had the Bills, I think you had 14 points plus 21, something like that. So good for those people who had faith in the Bills. Patriots now are 2 games behind the Dolphins, with the Dolphins coming into Foxborough this week. And the Patriots, yesterday, they only went with 3 wide receivers, including Cordarrelle Patterson, who's really not a conventional wide receiver. So they just couldn't get anything going.
No, I mean, they look absolutely horrible. The defensive line was getting pushed every running play. Some of them were getting pushed 5 yards back. They weren't aggressive. They were, reading and then reacting, where they should have been putting the pressure on them. They started in the second half with some of that, and then that ended after the first possession.
It's really discouraging because it really looked like the Patriots didn't show up. They just didn't really put forth a good effort. There wasn't a lot of enthusiasm. And the things that everyone worried about in the Super Bowl is inability to cover intermediate and short routes by the tight ends and the running backs are still an enormous problem. They just don't have enough team speed, especially among the linebackers, to cover those first level passes.
Yeah, I think Belichick has done an absolutely terrible job as a general manager. Horrible. I mean, all his moves. I mean, how do you, number one, you trade Cook, okay? To me, give him the money. He's one of the best receivers in football. You've got to pay somebody. You can't just keep paying these linemen, defensive linemen, $4 million, $5 million. I mean, they're not worth that. Someone like Cook is worth $12 million a year. And then you let Amendola go. You know my feeling about that. Before all this happened, I said, those are terrible moves. Now you have 2 first-round draft picks and you go with offensive players. You go with an offensive lineman where that's probably the strongest suit you have is your offensive line. Even though you lost Solder, you have a very good offensive lineman. You don't need an offensive lineman in the first pick. You need a linebacker who can cover. We talked about this, sideline to sideline. There were plenty of linebackers around, good young linebackers. He goes with an offensive lineman. And then he goes with a running back. I think Michel's going to end up being pretty good. You still need defense over that.
Well, people are really down on Michel after yesterday's game. I mean, he missed most of the preseason. He's
going to be good.
Doesn't look explosive yet. Couldn't break tackles. But there weren't a lot of holes there for him either.
He's going to be good. He's going to be good. Belichick really screwed the whole team up. He really did. When you really think about it, the moves he made, we're banging our head watching these moves he made, and it's showing. We knew this before the season started. You don't let a guy like Amendola, I told you last show, he's been better than Brown, Edelman, Welker in the clutch. He's been unbelievable. They let him go when they could have signed him for $4 million before he became a free agent.
Well, without the outside or slot threats, you're seeing Gronkowski's degree of separation is getting very small. And the windows when Brady got him the ball, he got hit immediately. So his chances of getting injured are a lot higher. The first long pass they threw to him down the seam where he got a 19-yard gain, I thought he was going to get injured, get a knee injury the way guys hit him. So now I get that, the way we Patriots fans are. If they lose a couple games, it's the end of the world. And I'm surprised. I don't know. I didn't see the post game whether Belichick said we're on to Miami.
I went to bed in the third quarter. Usually I stay up late and watch the fifth quarter. I was so disgusted with the way the whole game was going. And then the key to top it all off is McDaniel's play calling. I've never seen play calling like that. How do you run the ball twice knowing you can't run the ball? And the Patriots were passing the ball pretty good. When they made that drive and they got stopped in the 20, when he had 2nd and 5, he ran it. 3rd and 2, he ran it. And then they had to kick a field goal.
Well, the game's evolved so that if you have an unsuccessful first down play, it's almost an automatic that they're going to run the ball on 2nd down because they want to get a 3rd and 5 instead of 3rd and 10. Now, Patriots were not 100% along those lines, but the Lions looked very good last night, or the Patriots looked really terrible. And we're obviously biased that the Patriots were terrible. If you try to think about players who actually had a pretty good game, it would be a pretty short list. Bentley made a nice interception, didn't do much else besides that.
You know what I'm worried about? Do you remember the Yankees collapse in the 60s?
Oh, sure.
Do you remember that when they were great and then all of a sudden they got old and they collapsed and they became one of the worst teams in baseball for a while? I'm worried that this is happening to the Patriots. I'm usually positive with them, but I look at that defense. The defense is absolutely putrid. I blame a lot of it on Belichick again. Top 2 first-round draft picks, doesn't draft a defensive player. I think he's the most stubborn coach.
Well,
they've been so successful, and I told you before that Brady has covered up for a lot of his mistakes, but he can't cover up for many more. Look what he's left them.
Well, the Patriots are famous for having a strong middle class. The players who are in the 15 to 35, good players, not great players, and obviously not compensated at the highest level. But if you look on defense for star players, McCourty at this point is not a star player, and he's getting, $9.7 million. Hightower looks woefully slow right now, whether he's hurt or just still has been so long missing football that his reactions are slow. But, he really looks like he can't play.
But just think of this, Ron. If they're doing their scouting properly, get They get two real good young linebackers. Look at they had 2 first-round picks. Get 2 fast linebackers, right? Who coming out of one of those programs, like Alabama, Georgia, LSU, Auburn. You know, and imagine the difference if you had 2 real good linebackers who could cover the field, could cover backs coming out of the backfield. Say they have all slow linebackers. I mean, what is he thinking about?
Well, let's say if the Patriots somehow have a bad year and they get a draft choice in the 12 to 16 range, first-round draft choice. You know what they're going to do? They're going to trade down and get 2 other ones.
I think Belichick's gone after this year. How can you make the moves he has made, right, this year? All the moves he has made. You know, how can he make those moves knowing that he's going to be with this team for the next 4 or 5 years?
Well, assuming he still likes coaching football, which I think he does, and he's getting paid $12.5 million a year, is he going to walk away from $12.5 million for another year? And the question is, if they have a really mediocre year, does Brady want to stick around and be part of that, or is he going to get traded somewhere else for a couple draft choices?
Here's the one positive, if there is one. It's an if.
Okay.
It's an if. Edelman comes back and is the same Edelman, all right,
Okay.
in 2 games. Well, they beat Miami this week. That's a big game. They go 2-2. Then Edelman comes back. And then Gordon becomes the player that they hope he can become. Now your offense could cover up for the defense, which is going to give up points. But if they had Cook and Amendola in yesterday's game, they would have beat Detroit. They would have scored in the 30s against Detroit. They would have just opened up the offense. They would have went 5 wide. He would have had the receivers. And they would have been able to score most of the time.
Which obviously brings us to the other point is Michelle got most of the reps and James White didn't, whereas White needed to be out there to help spread the field. The guy gets open and he catches the ball. So that's another mystery that remains unexplained.
Sometimes you wonder, like McDaniels, they gave him $4 million, $4 million for the next 4 or 5 years. Sometimes you wonder, and does he think he's better than he really is? He's had Brady. I mean, don't forget, that's the 3rd offensive coordinator Brady has had. They've all looked great with Brady. They've all looked unbelievable with Brady. It's mostly Brady. And then,
well, for the most part, when people leave the Patriots, they haven't done well. Obviously, Patricia lost their first 2 games and they gave up 39 points a game. Now, Belichick's understudies haven't done very well, but obviously Patricia had enough of a game plan. But right now, every team is going to throw that under routes to wide receiver crossing patterns and backs out of the backfield until the Patriots show they can stop it.
and the backs, they let him catch the ball every time. How many deflections have you seen in the first 3 games? How many defensive backs have put their hands on the ball? I mean, not many.
No, about the only defensive player I thought made a decent showing was Jonathan Jones. I thought looked pretty well. Wise made that good
Jonathan
set.
Jones. Yeah, he got beat one time, but I like Jonathan Jones a little.
The other thing was the tackling was atrocious. I mean, the Lions running backs are not special. LeGarrette Blount, it's not like he's gotten any faster, but he had a good game. And was it Johnson, or Jones, the other? Oh gosh, it was just horrible. And I know the sky is always falling when the Patriots lose a couple games, but it really looks like the sky is falling right now.
Yeah,
it wasn't like a really good team beat them. They lost to a really bad team.
I mean, like I said, the one thing is if Edelman comes back and is playing good, you got White there, you got Gronk, Hollister was out of the game again, and you got Gordon, turns out to be what we hope he can be. If that happens in the offense, they will win enough to make the playoffs. I'm worried about the playoffs.
On the other hand, there's some hope for other teams. You have Baker Mayfield in Cleveland had put on a terrific exhibition off the bench. Granted, it was only the Jets. Josh Allen won yesterday for the Bills. And then you have, Carson Wentz came back in Philadelphia. They're winning. So there's a lot of other good quarterbacks that are succeeding that are young. And the Patriots are not in that line. So maybe the Patriots need to have a terrible year so they can draft the quarterback of the future. And then, if they had a terrible year, people wouldn't be clamoring to hang on to Brady.
Well, if they wouldn't have it wouldn't be that bad where they can get that kid from Alabama, because he's
gosh.
unbelievable.
Right. We'll be right back. Welcome back. For those of us who bleed green, love the Celtics and professional basketball, the season is finally here. Today was media day, and interviews with most of the players were very upbeat. It's not so simple as to say you just show up and you go to the finals. That's disservice to some other teams that are on the rise, particularly Philadelphia, as well as Toronto, is still good and has Kawhi Leonard. So we'll see. I don't even know where to start. What do you think, Ralph?
Well, you have to think the Celtics are definitely the favorites. I mean, I read an article about Toronto. They said Toronto's going to be right in the mix, Philadelphia. But I can't see, if the Celtics are healthy, I can't see either one of those teams beating the Celtics. Milwaukee, Milwaukee, the way the Celtics handled Milwaukee in the playoffs last year without probably their two best players. And my feeling is as long as they're healthy and they keep, with Stevens coaching them, they're going to be in the right frame of mind the whole season. I mean, I think they can win upwards of, if they're healthy, 66 games.
There's a concept called a pre-mortem examination where you look at a project in advance that goes south, doesn't work out, and you say, what could derail the progress? Obviously, injuries for any team could. And probably the other thing for the Celtics is, where do you find minutes for people to keep them happy, as well as shots? You have established stars. Horford, I don't think, is somebody who needs tons of shots. So he'd be happy to get probably more assists. Where Irving likes to score, I mean, I've heard rumors that Hayward also has needs. And then you have Tatum and Brown, who were both terrific in the playoffs. They got valuable experience that they never would have gotten otherwise. But it always creates a problem when there's only one ball.
The best part of Hayward's game, people think it's shooting, scoring. The best part of Hayward's game is the way he runs an offense when he has the ball. He's almost like Bird was in the half court. He controls the game. He knows where everybody should be, great passer, good off the dribble, and plus he's a great scorer. But he's the type of player, if he sees that Brown's hot, Brown's going to get the ball. If he sees that Tatum's into it, is hot, Tatum's going to get the ball. But he's going to make sure they run their sets properly. I mean, when I saw him play against Golden State 2 years ago in the playoffs, in the second half they changed. Their thinking was the point guard handled the ball in the first half. In the second half, Hayward handled the ball in the half court. He ran the offense, and he was great at it. That's when he scored 30, 29, and 32, 3 games in a row against Golden State.
But it's going to be interesting where, against certain teams that are stronger rebounding, will Baines start, and maybe Tatum comes off as the sixth man. No knock on Tatum. Tatum's a terrific player, but if they need more rebounding, Tatum started off the season really well rebounding, and his rebounding kind of went down as the season went along. Now apparently he's put on some weight and strength in the off season, so maybe they'll get more rebounds from him.
He's going to be the starter. I would think if anybody sat, I think Horford would sit and Baines would start. I think they're going to go, those 4 are going to be in there all the time. Irving, Brown, Tatum, and Hayward, they're going to be starting all the time.
Well, certainly in the way the game has changed with the emphasis on three-point shooting, the knock on Brown was that he couldn't shoot. The guy can shoot. I mean, it wasn't, he couldn't shoot before he worked at it, but I think he shot 38% from 3 last year, which is very good. Anything up around 40 is terrific.
But my thing is, I believe that potentially they could be the best team in basketball by midseason. I think they could be better than Golden State if things work out the way Because I just think, I look at the players. I look at Golden State, and then I look at the Celtics, and I think the Celtics, their top 12 players, I think they match up better than Golden State's 12. I mean, just look at it. Who can match up with Curry and Thompson at the guard position? Well, Kyrie and Brown. They can match up with them well. And now you got Tatum, and what people don't understand is when you go up against Durant, of course Durant's better than everybody goes up against, except LeBron, and that's close. But if he's going up against Hayward, he's going to have to play defense against Hayward. Or Hayward would eat him up on offense. And then Hayward's smart enough where Durant's not going to dominate him. Durant's going to be successful, but he's not going to dominate Hayward, who will be covering him.
Well, one of the big stories, or one of the stories that you look at, is really finding the sunrise on a new story. And to me, this year is the year that teams are going to adjust to switch everything basketball. So teams are going to design offenses to take advantage of the switches. So if you have somebody switching out on Tatum, who's a smaller player, he'll have an advantage. If you have somebody switching on to Kyrie, who's a bigger player, he'll have the advantage. So it works both ways, because Irving's not a great defensive player. He's an okay defensive player when he's motivated, whereas some players can seamlessly switch against 2s, 3s, and 4s. So I think Tatum can do that. Brown certainly can do that. Hayward, assuming he's healthy, should be able to do that. And there aren't that many 5s that you really have that are that big a threat from the perimeter. Horford really is a pretty good outside shooter.
Oh, yeah. He's a very good outside shooter. But you look at the Celtics, especially when Smart's in there at point guard, I mean, they can switch.
Right.
Switch away from the basket. And, I mean, they're long. Now, that's what Kerr said about the Celtics. I think I told you this, is that Celtics are so long. That's why not many teams are successful shooting from the three-point line.
And in Game 3, at the end of the game, the Celtics were ahead by 1, and they ran a play, sidelines out of bounds play, where they got 2 switches and ended up with Horford sealing Covington away from the basket for an over-the-top pass from, I think it was Marcus Morris. And that's the kind of action that teams are going to work on to try to get mismatches off multiple switches. And Philadelphia is still going to be formidable, especially now. Everybody says Simmons has, reformed his shot. I don't, he got 0 3-point shots last year, so I can't believe he's going to be an impact 3-point shooter this year. Embiid, yes, Embiid can shoot inside and outside. He's got good footwork, but he's a guy who hasn't been able to stay healthy either. So we'll see.
And Embiid doesn't like going up against Baines. Baines did a good job on him, physical. Baines, that was a huge signing. If they lost Baines, that was going to hurt him big time. But Baines is going to be huge. Did a real good job defensively. He's the number 1 defensive player rated, right?
Yeah, Baines is good against the pick and roll. Somehow he manages to stay vertical and not pick up a lot of fouls, despite the fact that he's very physical. As far as their draft choice, Robert Williams, I don't have much of expectations. He'll spend a significant amount of time up in Maine, I think.
Yeah, and hopefully he develops over the next couple of years. But how about the season ticket holders? Are they going to love this team? I mean, going to the games and watching this type of basketball?
Well, even if you're watching the second team with guys like Rozier, Smart, Morris, Baines some nights, Ogilvy will get some play against stronger players that they relying on him. Like he seems to be kryptonite for the Antetokounmpo. I like Ogilvy. We'll see whether he's improved his shot.
You're going to be hearing a lot, though, during the year about people talking about Golden State against the Celtics. People are going to say that's going to be an unbelievable matchup. And I think it's...
Well, obviously, the things we have to worry about is somehow that Hayward's not as healthy as he seems to be, or Irving's knee isn't as good as it seems to be. But they have enough depth that they should be able to rest some of these guys and not play them heavy minutes all the time. And sort of like the Red Sox do, Cora, sometimes he just sits out guys, which I think it really helps players.
Well, there's going to be guys that are injured during the season.
Right.
They're going to go out, and then it's going to make things a lot easier for the to play the second team as more minutes.
Well, Marcus Smart's never going to stay healthy because the way he throws his body around. So he's going to be injured.
I just hope that, you know my feeling about Stevens with Smart. I just hope that he's not so much in love with Smart that Brown or Tatum is sitting at the end of games.
Yeah, the way Brown is an odd player. So often, if he's going to score in the 20s, he's getting 15 points in the first quarter, and then for some reason he disappears.
But he sits him for 8 minutes. That's what makes watch it. Well, last year he'd score 14 points in the first quarter, come out, and he'd sit out till there was 4 minutes to go in the second quarter.
I know, and it's basketball is so much a game of rhythm, and if you get out of rhythm, it's hard to come back in and get it right back.
Yeah, but the one thing I really worry about with Smart, them signing Smart, is he going to hurt the development of Tatum and Brown? Is he going to take minutes away from them where they're unhappy because Stevens loves Smart so much because of his defense, where Brown and Tatum are going to get better defensively the more they play?
I think Smart is going to be content with, he got paid, and I think he's
going to want to play.
He's always going to play hard. I know, but if you play hard in 24 minutes instead of 30, it's going to be a matter of how Stevens can convince him, we need 24 good minutes from you. We don't need 30 mediocre minutes.
But do you think Smart's going to be happy sitting at the end of the game in the last 4 minutes?
Well, we'll see.
He's not going to be happy. And Stevens loves his defense at the end and the plays he makes at the end. But instead of having Tatum and Brown in there with Kyrie, Horford, and
well, worst case scenario is you can trade him, and he's getting, by NBA standards, he's not getting a fortune.
I mean, if he's happy and does what we hope he can do, then they're going to be that much better.
My guess is that after his mother passed away recently, he's probably going to be even more motivated because he's going to want to win one for his mother. I mean, he's kind of he's a really intense guy. So I don't think he needs extra motivation, but he probably has it. And I think the season should be really fascinating to watch in both conferences. There's so many teams that are improving. Even Golden State, you can make the argument that they're improved with DeMarcus Cousins, although he won't play until the second half of the season or late in the second half of the season after his Achilles.
Yeah, and then another thing, too, is with Cousins is, what is he going to give them that they don't have?
Right.
Is he going to give them rebounding, more rebounding? If he shoots the ball, that means that Curry's not shooting it, Durant's not shooting it, Thompson's not shooting it, and Livingston when he comes in. So he's going to have to play good defense, and he's going to have to rebound because they definitely have the scoring. They don't need any more scoring from him.
Right, and he only has a one-year deal, right?
And then West will probably sit a lot.
I think did West retire? I think he retired. But if Cousins trying to reestablish his value, you're only going to reestablish your value if you're shooting, not just standing around. So
yeah, he's only making $5 million.
Yeah. So we'll see. Hasn't been tons of players come back with Achilles injuries in the NBA and be their former selves. So it should be really interesting. And like I said, don't sleep on the Lakers because I think they've improved a lot. Not enough to be a threat for anybody's championship, but they're improved.
I think they're going to be better than Cleveland was last year with LeBron because of the good young players. If they all develop and LeBron lets Rondo handle the ball and when he's in there.
Well, it's hard to figure. Right, Rondo can get LeBron even more easy shots. Not that LeBron needs more easy shots. So it'll be interesting to see how that works out there. And that, LeBron's just a terrific player. There's too many people who are hung up on his decision stuff from years ago that's a non-factor right now. The guy can really play. And the question is whether he gets exhausted from trying to do too much.
But on that team, he doesn't have to do that much. With Kuzma and Rondo. Randall left, right? He signed with New Orleans.
I'm not sure where he is. And they have
I think he signed with New Orleans.
Like you said, they have Ingram too. So,
they got talent there.
Yeah, they got a good situation out there, and they got a reasonable coach. So, we'll see how it goes.
But the main problem that LeBron has is that he doesn't have that many shooters.
Right.
You know, I mean, then Kuzma's an okay shooter. You know, Ingram's better inside, you know, the foul line with his moves. But you're right, it's going to be very interesting, and who knows, they could be right up there behind Golden State.
Okay, we'll switch on to a little bit about before we talk about the Red Sox, talk about the postseason. Should be a fascinating postseason. It's too soon to even talk about the National League because it's so wide open yet with a win.
There's nothing over there, Ron.
Well, I know. For example, if you look at wins above replacement, an analytic statistic for how productive you've been, they don't have anybody in the National League over 7, whereas Mookie Betts is at 10.6. Trout, despite injury for a time, is almost at 10. You have, what's his name? Lindor, a terrific player. Alex Bregman has been really phenomenal.
Oh, he's real good.
For Houston. They've got Matt Chapman, the third baseman from Oakland. They have a lot of really good players. Jose Ramirez on the Indians. There's just a lot of really...
And they got Donaldson, too.
Yeah, I know.
If he wakes up.
Well, the Red Sox and the Yankees were really unhappy because you're supposed to, if you get through waivers at the end of August, you're supposed to be able to come up and play right away. And Donaldson hadn't fully recovered at that point. So the Red Sox and Yankees felt that if Cleveland was going to claim him because they had precedence, because they had a worse record, that they had to be able to be willing to play him right away, which obviously they didn't. But I don't know if there's been any protest or not. Now, obviously, the Yankees and the A's are going to have the one-game playoff. The Yankees have been playing good baseball. They get Judge back.
They've been playing what?
Well, they're not terrible, you know.
They were 30 games over 500 back, I think before, it was before the All-Star break. They were over 30 games. They're a 500 team, the Yankees.
Well,
I'm really upset with
them.
that.
They had a lot of injuries. So Judge was injured, Sanchez was injured. Now Gregorius is injured.
But their biggest problem is the same problem. They don't make contact enough. They got the worst batting average, but with runners on, they leave more runners on base. They got the most home runs in baseball. That's what it is. They hit a home run, but they're not a fun team to watch. I mean, they don't run the bases. They don't get the ball's not put in play. I watch them against Baltimore last night.
They have trouble against Baltimore.
Now, the pitch who started against the Yankees got a blister after 4 pitches. They bring in Wright, this kid Wright. He walks that batter and 2 other batters. The Yankees got bases loaded. Well, they get all 3 runs scored in the first inning. They don't get another run the rest of the game. And run. I'm watching the game. No one runs the bases. They strike out most of the time. The difference between the Yankees and the Red Sox, besides I think the Red Sox definitely have better pitching, starting pitching, the Red Sox make contact way more than the Yankees. They're more of a fun team to watch.
We'll be right back to continue some of this discussion. Well, I'm going to be like everybody else and dismiss the Oakland A's and say that the Yankees win the playoff game to go into the Final Four in the American League. I'm not going to worry about the National League because National League, it should be a win for the American League if they can get into the National League, into the World Series. But last night, people were offering up the Indians as the best team in the American League, and I'm not sure I agree with that. They have Kluber and Bauer, 2 really good starting pitchers.
Bauer just came back, right?
Right, and they have a lot of hitting with Donaldson added into Encarnacion, Ramirez, and Lindor. So I mean, and then they've got some other guys too.
Good relief, good bullpen too.
Yeah, and good bullpen. So they have a good team and they have a good manager. Managers, Francona's a proven quantity. But I still like Houston. Houston's got a terrific starting staff. Not everybody's got great stuff, but they know how to get you out. And they also have they got Osuna from Toronto to bolster their bullpen. I don't see any suspension coming up for Osuna. And then I think the Red Sox and Yankees are a little bit lower because the Red Sox are really flawed. They have a bad bullpen. And it's not like a mediocre bullpen. It's just bad. You know, aside from Kimball, there's nobody else that you can trust.
Well, you put Wright and Evaldi in the bullpen, all of a sudden they could have a real good bullpen. I think Wright could be another Miller in these playoffs. Throw him 3 innings, come back and throw a couple of innings. I mean, his knuckleball, I think he's got an unbelievable knuckleball. If he's on, teams aren't going to want to face him. So that's going to be a key. And then Evaldi coming in, throwing 99, throwing that split finger, and the pitch that Mariano Rivera used to throw, the cutter. The cutter at 97 miles an hour. I mean, Eckersley even said he's never seen a cutter thrown that fast.
Well, obviously you got Sale, Price, who, you know, if you're going to pitch him against the Yankees, you got to pitch him at Fenway. You can't pitch him in Yankee Stadium.
Yeah, that was a disaster the last game.
Yeah, I mean, okay, so you're going to say the home run, they had 3 home runs that were less than 350 feet. Doesn't matter, they're still home runs. And then you have Porcello, who you never know what you're going to get. He can be good or he can not be so good. And Rodriguez, same way. He's kind of inconsistent, although good stuff.
But no, it's going to come down to, like it has the last 2 years, are these players going to become winners? You know, are they going to come through in the playoffs?
Yeah, Betts and Bogarts have to come through.
You know, they have to come through. Are they going to be, if they go up against Houston?
Well, I like
Altuve, you know.
Yeah, I think your thought that, what's his name? Second baseman, Kinsler, is going to be really important because he's a guy who's a real veteran player who's been a productive player in the clutch.
I said I think he's going to come up with the big hits in the playoffs for them. But, you know, the other guys, Martinez is going to hit in the playoffs.
Yeah, Martinez's home run production hasn't been much lately.
No, he's been a little, I think he's tired. He might be a little tired. You know, in baseball, as a hitter, once you lose that edge a little, you can struggle. That's why when people say, how can they go in a slump like that? You get a little tired, you lose that quickness, and you start, foul balls off instead of drilling them, and you don't know in the playoffs.
Well, and the most surprising team in the American League anyway, by far, especially when you consider the talent level of the team, is Tampa. I mean, they have the next best record after the playoff teams.
Watch them next year.
Yeah, and they don't.
They got the Cy Young Award winner too.
Yeah, Snell. In all likelihood, Snell deserves to win the Cy Young Award. The other competition is Bauer, and Verlander is an outside chance. Verlander has 280 strikeouts and 36 walks.
If they take that away from Snell, that'll be a disaster.
It should be Snell. Snell's been fantastic.
21-4 with Tampa.
Yeah, he's really been phenomenal.
In Oakland too. Oakland and Tampa.
Right. So the presumption is that Cora will get Manager of the Year, but you have to really think hard about Kevin Cash as far as being really productive, and Bob Melvin, the manager in Oakland, they've really done miracles with those rosters.
But you look at the Yankees. Judge is going to have to hit. Stanton's going to have to hit. Sanchez, he's got to hit. I mean, both of them are hitting in the hundreds.
Well, the thing is, you don't have
Sanchez and Stanton.
You don't have to be great for 3 months. You only have to be great for a month.
I mean, if they can put it together. But right now, you look at the teams, and Houston's playing good. The Red Sox, in Cleveland.
Right. So you wouldn't say nobody's a lock. That's for sure. Any of those teams could win.
Well, I'm not happy with the Yankees. I'm really not happy with them. And you know why. It's just that, to me, they don't have enough winners on that team. They got some good young talent, and Torrey and Andujar.
They have a really good outfielder that used to play for the Red Sox, except he doesn't play for the Yankees anymore. He just gets paid.
$22 million a year.
Yeah, how many years left does he have on the contract that he hasn't played for?
I don't know if this is it. See, he had a 6-year contract.
I thought he had 7.
$23 million a year.
I don't know. Anyway,
is it 7?
Ellsbury's been sitting. Ellsbury hasn't played one play this season, and he's getting paid, which is a good deal for him.
I think that's a worse contract than A-Rod's was.
It really is. I mean, they really haven't gotten much out of him. And even when he was playing, he wasn't the same guy. Now, why was he not the same guy? I don't know. Maybe it was vitamins.
I don't think he has it. When he hit those 40 homers that year, whatever it was.
30-something, yeah. Yeah, so whatever players have tremendous level of achievement, then it stops. It just makes you wonder. I mean, who knows? Now, We'll talk a little bit about high school sports. The football team's off to a good start. Losing to Lincoln Sudbury is no shame. Lincoln Sudbury is one of the top
Number 2.
3 teams in the state. Everett, obviously, right up there with former Melrose star Isaac Seed. And the football team had an excellent performance against Watertown. Great effort by Pete. You said he had over 200 yards?
235 yards, I think, 3 touchdowns.
Yeah, long runs. Both lines looked really good on the tape that I saw. I thought the defensive line got excellent penetration, good tackling. They got so much penetration, in fact, that Watertown got a little bit of advantage throwing some screens because they were able to identify that Melrose, really their pass rush was overwhelming. So it wouldn't be surprising to see other teams look at that film and say, okay, we can do the same thing.
Yeah, but I mean, after that Lincoln Sudbury game, I mean, if they, who knows, they may go to the Super Bowl again. I mean, Watertown's usually pretty good. I know Malden's terrible.
Right. Stoneham's been pretty good. So
Stoneham's not in their division, though.
No, not in their division. Not really sure who the other.
And they got a break too. Tewksbury's not in their division either, I don't think.
No, I think Tewksbury's at least one higher. Yeah. I mean,
so they got a shot.
Tewksbury who'd they beat last week? It was a good team. Like, it wasn't St. John's Prep, but it was another really high-ranked team.
How about Catholic Memorial with DiBiase?
Oh, I haven't seen what are they doing?
They're 3-0 and they're killing everybody. They'll be going. They're playing Xaverian this week, but they're going to be playing Everett, I think. Don't they play Everett?
With a coach like DiBiase going there, is it that the coaching is that much better, or he was able to attract players? However, I don't know the answer to that. I'm not.
They say their offense is just the offense he runs. I mean, it's outstanding, and that's been a big thing. He's got a good quarterback. He probably knew we had there before he left.
Tewksbury one I saw, and they had another Aylward. How many Aylwards do they have there? It's like there's always an Aylward there.
I told you Aylward grew up, the grandfather now, grew up across the street from me in Somerville.
Well, it seems like there's been a never-ending stream of those Aylwards
but
there.
That Aylward was a great guy, Bobby Aylward.
The volleyball team continues to roll on. It was interesting. They were playing Stoneham. Stoneham put up a good battle over in Stoneham, and I think that was the game. Coach Shelley yelled out in the middle of the game, "What do you want to become?" And I thought that was really insightful because they have all young players. They have no seniors. They've got a number of sophomores who see a lot of action. They have 2 excellent middle hitters in Emma Randolph and Emily Hudson. Steve Krampoulos calls them the M&Ms. And they have solid experience in the back row with Nicole Abbott and Mary Kate Mahoney, so they have really strong defense. And some surprising talent. Sophia Centrello has really been terrific hitting from the outside. And Leah Heafy's getting an expanded role as a designated server and back row player. So, I mean, the problem is so far to try to make an assessment of the teams. The schedule hasn't really allowed them to play really strong teams yet. That's going to change. Tomorrow they play Wakefield, which is obviously not a strong team. But later on Thursday they play Burlington that beat Notre Dame Academy of Hingham.
How's Notre Dame?
Well, they're highly ranked, but the problem is it's somewhat of a mystery. The coaching staff was let go from Notre Dame just before the season. The rumor is that it was dissatisfied parents.
Why do they even listen to parents? I mean, that's a disgrace.
Well, I'll give you
they can't, the principal or the vice principal, the athletic director?
I'll give you an example. In Texas, there's a coach, I won't name his names, but he'd been a coach of the year 3 times and won over 450 games, high school basketball coach. And he told me over the internet that an alum said, "I'll give you $25,000 if you get rid of this guy." So the school release the guy. So
Well, that's not the case around here.
no, nobody's got that kind of money.
No,
I
but
don't think.
look at Braintree. They got upset at the Braintree coach
Yeah, Kristen
in
McDonald.
basketball because she wasn't playing the girls that wanted scholarships as much as they wanted to play because they were winning by so many points. They were complaining that my daughter, who's going to be, a star, we wanted to get a scholarship, isn't playing enough. Can you believe? I mean, that's ridiculous.
Well, certainly if you're on tape and you're being productive, if whether you're playing 22 minutes or 28 minutes, the coach doesn't need to see you play the other 6 minutes in a 45-point game.
But yeah, I know. But what are athletic directors for? Athletic directors, I mean, they're supposed to watch and see if the coaches are handling teams properly.
Well, obviously it's easier, the path of least resistance is to get a new coach rather than, if you're the athletic director, you're going to stand firm and they say, well, we want a new athletic director.
Oh, God, I mean, if they're buckling to that pressure, that's ridiculous.
What's interesting is almost uniformly across the country, these coaching jobs are a one-year job. Everybody's on a one-year contract. So if you make the right people unhappy, they can go to the administration and get rid of you.
So the Notre Dame coaches that have been very successful,
2 state championships.
unless they weren't treating the players properly, I mean, swearing at them, getting on them like that. I mean, but just because they might be too tough, demanding, I mean, that's what the athletic director's job is.
Well, I think it's, I obviously don't know what the situation at Notre Dame is, but having seen their teams in the past, excellent teams, I never saw anything outwardly that suggested anybody was unhappy. But, obviously you got, when Melrose went up against one of the stronger Notre Dame teams and lost, they had players from 8 different communities playing on Notre Dame. So you generate an all-star team from your area. And, some of those kids are going to say, I should be playing more. And if enough people complain, whether it's one loud voice or several, then it just makes it really untenable. And I agree that if you're the administration, you have to say, the coach is doing a good job, we support what they're doing, there's only 6 players on the court at a time,
You think that can't be the reason, though, that they let them go? Because someone's complaining about playing time.
Oh.
They can't be the reason.
Well, certainly you had, at Lincoln Sudbury, you had the baseball coach, Kirk Fredericks, a couple of years ago, who was outstanding pipeline of players to college baseball. I think he won 3 state championships there. And supposedly there was, somebody's kid who wasn't playing, but everybody sort of agreed he wasn't a real strong player. And all of a sudden he was gone. So I think no matter who you are, it's easy to be replaced. Unless you have really strong allies that are going to keep you in a job.
I mean, I still say the athletic director has a job to do. It should be the athletic director. If he sees something that's not proper, he should be able to talk to the coach and say, listen, I'm not happy, the way you're treating the players. You can't swear at them. In high school, I mean, college and pro is a different story. And you got to treat them properly. But for playing time, if I was an athletic director, I would tell the parent, I don't want to hear from you.
Well,
We're not talking about playing time.
Right. It's, obviously, depending on what level you're on, high school or college is very different than developmental programs where everybody's getting a chance to play. And when you are paying user fees, you're paying to be allowed to participate on the team. You're not buying playing time. Can't say I haven't coached in high school, but I imagine coaches would feel at least a little pressured to get people some minutes, especially when the game is out of hand in either direction.
But one thing I can say, the type of coach I am, everybody plays. If I was coaching a varsity basketball team, right, and they were committed, number one, I wouldn't have 13 players. You have the girls that deserve to be on the varsity. You don't carry someone just to carry them. Maybe have 11 players on the team. Everybody gets in every game, even varsity basketball. They're there working out hard. Even if they're not good offensively, make sure they can play defense. That's the number one thing. And they get in the game. And, even the varsity, that's one thing I feel. You got them on the varsity, they're working every day. they should be getting in the game. But you also can't carry 13 or 14 players. That way you can't get them in.
Well, I think the other thing that comes up a lot in high school situations, especially with girls, is that girls mature at a quicker rate than boys. So there are freshman girls that have the majority of their height and strength and can compete for playing time and be productive at that age. And it's difficult for parents, especially of older players, to say, gee, my kids are older, they put in their time, they paid their dues, but you have some younger player who comes up who is as good or better than they are as far as skill and athletically because...
Oh, we've seen that.
Oh, sure.
We've seen that with our girls.
Right, and it makes it awkward for the relationships between the older players and the younger players. There are going to be parents who feel like their kid is not having the role that they would like. But the only way, no matter how transparent you are, you can only have a certain number of minutes to play.
Right. I mean, I'm not saying like if I were coaching a varsity basketball team, I had 11 players, you know, I mean, and they were all working hard. It's not too hard to get, one girl may only play 4 minutes, but she knows she's going to get in there. She plays good defense, knows what to do with the basketball. She's going to get more minutes. But the stars, of course, play more. I'm not saying everybody plays equal.
Well, I think,
but I'm saying they want to be part of the team.
I mean, you're always going to see it at every level that the players who are, you know, how often do you see a situation where the player who's the 11th or 12th player on the team comes in and dominates when they come in? You know, they're the 11th or 12th player because they can't dominate when they come in. It doesn't make them a bad kid. They could be a real, you know, an excellent kid, but they're not as strong as the players who are getting more time.
And I saw Woburn play last year, I think, Woburn, and I saw Belmont, 2 real good teams.
Right.
They play almost their whole roster, I think, just about. They get the girls in. I mean, the stars play, you know, most of the game, which I would do.
Right.
You know, if I was coaching a team and I had stars, I mean, they would play most of the game, but you still work in the other players. Plus, you give them a rest every once in a
Right.
while.
Well, and one of the reasons the volleyball team's been strong over time is that younger players not only make the team, but they get excellent work in practice and they get into the games so they get opportunities. And injuries happen, people get the flu or pneumonia or whatever, mono, and other players get an opportunity. I always will harken back to Taylor Pearson was the reserve setter, and the frontline setter, which I think was Amanda Hallett at the time, she broke her shoelace against the Andover. So she had to come out to get her shoelace fixed. And Taylor came in off the bench cold. They won 6 out of 7 points and beat Andover up at Andover. You know, maybe I'm the only person in the universe that remembers that, but you've got to be able to come in and take advantage of your opportunity and help the team win. Well, I've enjoyed being with you tonight. I'm Ron Sen.
And I'm Ralph LaBella, and thank you for watching Let's Talk Sports.